honored by the Gowon administration and very little control over its own resources. For many in the southeast, this was the last straw. With the Gowon administration having put its cards on the table, Colonel Ojukwu mind was made up. He proceeded to consult with the various chiefs and traditional rulers of the eastern region, and on the 30th of May 1967, Ojukwu officially announced the secession of the eastern region and the establishment of the state of Biafra. And with the support of many key members of the southeastern leadership, Colonel Ojukwu cut all ties with the Nigerian army and was proclaimed General Ojukwu, Biafran President and Commander-in-Chief of the Biafran Army. The declaration of Biafra's secession was celebrated in the streets. For many, the establishment of Biafra was a long-awaited restoration of the pre-colonial sovereignty of the region and the beginning of a bright new dawn for its people. But unfortunately, the celebrations would be short-lived, as the Nigerian government's response was to declare war on Biafra. And although the Biafran army had no air force, no navy, and a chronic shortage of weapons and manpower, General Ojukwu was surprisingly optimistic about his new nation's ability to withstand the Nigerian army.
If civil war comes, and I do think it is imminent, you're quite right, it will for us be the price of freedom. Our people here have for a long time been prepared for this eventuality, and I am confident of their readiness. I think that when it does come, that the people on the other side would be surprised as to what they're going to get. And I'm confident that it will not last long. I can't say for certain what Lagos has got. When we lost direct contact with Lagos, they had some 4 battalions, ill-equipped, and I know that they have been purchasing a lot of arms since, and I know that they have negotiated and received a few armored vehicles. Prior to that, they had some scout cars. I know they have tried to get planes. I am not sure they have got them there. But on our side, we too have not been sitting quietly. There has been quite a lot of build-up. And I think what I have here is sufficient to maintain the integrity of Biafra and more.
But putting aside General Ojukwu's confident fighting talk, the reality of the matter was that Biafra was by far the underdog in this fight. The Nigerian military was larger, better funded, better trained, and had secured the support of Britain and other world powers. The expectation in Lagos was for the war to be over within a matter of weeks, or in the very worst case scenario, 6 months. But much to the surprise of the Nigerians, the Biafran army would prove a lot more resilient than they could have ever imagined. Despite being composed of a largely untrained and unskilled group of young men and teenage boys, the Biafrans would manage to withstand the Nigerian onslaught for 3 brutal years. The early campaigns of the Nigerian forces were quite successful. as they quickly managed to reclaim significant Biafran cities and monuments. But after nearly a year of fighting, the war reached a stalemate as the Biafran army began to stand its ground and maintain control of key cities and towns. Within the nation itself, the civilian population tried to carry on living life as normally as they could. With most of the men and boys on the battlefront, it was up to the women to manage the day-to-day running of the country. But as the war raged on, any hopes that the civilian population had of continuing to live their normal lives began to fade away. With both sides unable to reach an agreement, despite several attempts at peace talks, including one in Ethiopia presided over by Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie, the Gowon administration came to the very reckless conclusion that the only way to break the deadlock would be to trigger its nuclear option. The Gowon-led forces mobilized to impose an economic blockade on Biafra, which blocked the flow of all food and ammunition supplies by land, air, and sea. This move would turn out to be perhaps the single most destructive political decision in West African history, as it would ultimately lead to the death by malnourishment of an estimated 2 million civilians, most of whom were children suffering from the protein deficiency disease known as kwashiorkor. You see, prior to the war, dietary protein in the Biafran diet primarily consisted of locally sourced seafood, as well as dried stockfish, which was imported from Norway. Other sources of protein such as chicken, pork, and beef were generally only enjoyed on special occasions, as they were often too expensive for the wider population. But as the blockade prevented the importation of Norwegian stockfish, and also restricted the local fishermen's access to the seas, the region's protein supplies were quickly depleted, and the national diet was reduced to almost 100% starch. As the war took place around the golden era of TV media, the images of millions of malnourished Biafran children projected on TV sets worldwide would be one of the global community's earliest introductions to the now infamous trope of the starving African child. Although the Nigerian government strategy was indefensible, it is important to point out that the government's supposed reasoning at the time was that the blockade would be nothing more than a short, sharp shock, and that General Ojukwu, seeing the immense suffering of his people and the dwindling ammunition of his frontline soldiers, would have no other choice but to surrender. However, what the Nigerians had failed to realize was that the Biafran state had secured the support of a foreign benefactor of its own. Although the only countries to publicly recognize the state of Biafra were Tanzania, Gabon, the Ivory Coast, Zambia, and Haiti, Charles de Gaulle's France had taken a secret interest in Biafra as it saw it as the perfect addition to its sphere of influence in West Africa. According to French President Charles de Gaulle, Biafra was a just and noble cause, and so working closely with the French-aligned governments of the Ivory Coast under President Félix Houphouët-Boigny and the Gabonese Republic, led by President Omar Bongo, the French government helped to prolong the war by providing Biafra with weapons, mercenary fighters, and as much food as could be smuggled past the Nigerian blockade. France also publicized Biafra's cause on the international stage, describing the situation as nothing short of a genocide. The eventual discovery of France's involvement in the war would lead to protests on the streets of Lagos, with many accusing the French government of being the real reason why the war had continued, despite the fact that the Biafran forces had very little chance of overcoming the Nigerian military. But did France really get involved in the war simply because Charles de Gaulle considered Biafra to be a just and noble cause? Well, Not exactly. France's involvement was all about economics and had very little to do with some romantic desire for the Biafran people to share in the French ideals of liberté, égalité, and fraternité. Later investigations will show how the French state-owned oil company ELF had secured lucrative drilling agreements with the Biafran state. Had Biafra successfully seceded from Nigeria, these agreements would have guaranteed ELF access to the equivalent of 7% of Nigeria's oil supply and given the French government a nice slice of the Nigerian pie, which since the discovery of oil back in 1956 had been enjoyed solely by the Shell BP oil company. Although the French government tried to keep its ties to Biafra secret, General Ojukwu did very little to hide his country's French connection. From as early as the first year of the war, General Ojukwu had already begun to suggest that French would be made compulsory in Biafran secondary, technical, and teacher training schools. In his own words, he was very keen for his people to benefit from the rich culture of the French-speaking world. As the death toll began to rise exponentially, the whole world was becoming more aware of the level of carnage and immense suffering of the Biafran people. The Nigerian diaspora was galvanized, and protests and counter-protests began to take place on the streets of London and New York. Some Nigerians blamed General Ojukwu for the deaths of his own.
You are tuned to News Hours at Som TV, coming to you live from our studios in Jalingo, Taraba State. Stay connected with us on Facebook at Som TV and on YouTube at Som TV Live for more updates and in-depth coverage delivering the powers of the nation. Here are the major headlines. Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, says her ambition is to serve as a role model for young girls, and 7 councillors of Akoko Edo local government area in Edo State have impeached the council chairman, Alabi Oshinogu. The Anambra State governor has ordered all schools to resume academic activities on Monday. M. Herbert's Naftali Bandawa announced the news in full. The First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, says her ambition is to serve as a role model to young girls, noting that a shortage of positive figures to them as well someone to emulate. Speaking at the inauguration of the Senator Oluremi Tinubu Dream Center at Obafemi Awolowo University, she encouraged girls to dream positively and believe in their potentials, describing ICT Center as a platform for inspiration, storytelling, and digital learning. 7 councillors of Akoko Edo local government area in Edo State have impeached the council chairman, Alabi Oshinogu, citing abuse of office, financial misconduct, anti-party activities, and disobedience to authority. The impeachment follows the collapse of peace talks and the failed attempt by 3 councillors to remove the others. Those seats were subsequently declared vacant. Oshinogu denied the allegation, describing the action as politically motivated. The Anambra State government has ordered all schools to resume academic activities on Monday. Professor Ngozi Chuma Ude said the directive approved by Governor Chukwuma Soludo applies to public, private, mission, as well return schools. The move follows an executive order ending Monday closure linked to sit-at-home protest, as authorities seek to restore normal schooling and economic activities across the state. The Ekiti State government has approved 76.6 million in vehicle and housing loans for primary school teachers to boost welfare and morale. The vehicle loans covers 49 teachers, while housing loans benefit 72 individuals. The official said Governor Biodun Oyebanjo aims to strengthen basic education by motivating staffs, improve teachers' welfare, and is expected to enhance performances, create a better learning environment for pupils, and reinforces Ekiti's commitment to educational development across the state. The Kano State Commissioner of Information, Ibrahim Weya, denied claims that Abba Kabir Yusuf has lost control following defections to the leading APC. He emphasized that the key ministries, including education, health, work, finance, agriculture, and power, remains fully operational. The policies are being implemented, the projects are ongoing, and the cabinet is functional. We here urge critics to distinguish political theater from governance, highlighting the administration's stability, effective management, and continuous strategic oversight across Kano State. Additionally, the Kano State donated 25 million to families of 5 Joint Task Force personnel killed during the bandit clash in Shanonu local government area. Each family received 5 million. Governor Abba Yusuf reaffirmed collaborations with security agencies, while the military reported eliminating 43 bandits since November 2025. The gesture strengthens morale, support bereaved families, and enhancing security operations, while boosting confidence in law enforcement and public safety throughout Kano State. In Kogi State, stakeholders including NGOs, political parties, electoral bodies, religious leaders, and civil society groups pledged to curb electoral violences, as well increase women's participation ahead of the 2027 election. At the consultative forums, cultural barriers, insecurity, and discrimination were identified as key challenges. Participants resolved to promote inclusivity, peaceful voting, and closer engagement with electoral institutions, while aiming to ensure fair elections, strengthens democratic processes, and increase citizens' trust in governance across the state. The Federal High Court in Abuja approved former Kogi State Governor Yahya Bello's request to travel to Saudi Arabia for the 2026 Leisure Hajj. Justice Emeka Nwete ordered the temporary release of his passport for 10 days, starting from March 13, 2026. Bello's standing trials for alleged 80.2 billion naira laundry sought the trips for religious observance. The prosecution did not oppose the request but maintained that trial's date remains unchanged. Governor Obasani of Kaduna State received 5 awards from health sector unions for revitalizing healthcare, improving personnel welfare, and at the commissioning of the Kaduna State Primary Healthcare Board headquarters, he launched modern medical equipment, ambulances, upgraded 255 PHCs, established 23 PHC centers of excellence, and added 120 neonatal corners, renovated 19 general hospitals, recruited 1,800 health workers, and cleared salary and promotion backlog, while enhancing service delivery and healthcare outcomes statewide. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Yisem Wike, distributed 12 ambulances to hospitals across FCT to strengthen emergency healthcare services. He highlighted alignment with investments in roads, education, and health infrastructure. The FCT administration is rehabilitating health centers, recruiting personnel, and improving healthcare workers' welfare. These measures aim to enhance emergency response, reduce medical delays, and improve patient outcomes, ensuring a more efficient and resilient healthcare systems in the Federal Capital Territory. Stakeholders and human rights advocates also urged the National Assembly to expedite the passage of the reverse seats for women bills during the Capacity Building Forum in Abuja. The proposal recommends 37 additional Senate seats, 37 in the House of Representatives, and 3 per state assembly for female candidates. Experts emphasize engaging males as allies to dismantle patriarchy, increases women's participation, and reduce gender-based violence, while promoting inclusive governance nationwide. Governor Dapo Abiodun formally handed over Tai Solarin University of Education, Ijagun, to the federal government during its 17th convocation. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed with Minister of Education, Professor Suwaiba Ahmed. The First Lady Oluremi Tinubu announced a 50 million empowerment for the best graduating female students over 10 years. Abiodun praised federal support for teachers' education and national equity, while the university celebrated growth of over 35,000 students across undergraduate and postgraduate programs, while reinforcing education across the nationwide. The Lagos State Police arraigned activist Hassan Taiwo Soweto and Dele Frank at Yaba Chief Magistrate Court over protests against illegal demolitions and land grabbing. They face 5 charges, including conspiracy, unlawful assembly, and obstruction of traffic. Both pleaded not guilty. The human rights lawyer Femi Falana San represented them despite initial objections. The court granted 200,000 bails each with 2 sureties and adjourned the case to March 11, 2026, while ensuring due legal process in place. The All Progressive Congress in Zamfara State accused Governor Dauda Lawal of using government house security operatives to intimidate opposition members ahead of the 2027 election. Citing the arrest of APC member Bashir Issa Gusau, the People's Democratic Party dismissed claims as false, insisting governance remains inclusive. Both parties emphasize peaceful political engagement, while observers call for accountability in law enforcement and the protection of electoral rights to maintain public confidence across Zamfara State. The House of Representatives urged the federal government to harmonize poverty reduction and food security programs to combat hunger. The lawmaker noted that displaced farmers, especially in the Northeast, lack access to input, credit, and infrastructure. The ministries were directed to provide support, including mechanizations, irrigation, storage, and extension services, ensuring agricultural recovery, food sufficiency, and national economic stability. The federal government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, distributed free seeds and fertilizer to farmers in Cross River State. The minister, Abubakar Kyari, emphasized support for small-scale farmers. Beneficiaries were urged to use input effectively, strengthening productivity and food security. The initiative aims to reduce poverty, create jobs, and foster sustainable agricultural practices nationwide. The federal government of Nigeria Power Company called for collaboration with Kwara State to improve electricity under the Presidential Power Initiatives. The discussion focused on energizing feeders, supporting residential and industrial growth, and attracting investors. Kwara highlighted ongoing transformer installations. Reliable powers is expected to boost businesses, stimulate economic activity, and enhance living conditions while advancing national energy access as well its objectives. The Nigeria's National Assembly is considering a comprehensive electoral reform bills, introducing electric result, as well as transmission across the checking with hard copies, the downloadable voters' cards, oversight of resident electoral commissioners, and mandatory digital party registers. While some provisions, including campaign spending limits, raised concerns, the bill is seen as a key step toward credible, transparent, and accountable elections nationwide. Lawyers protested at the Federal Ministry of Finance over unpaid obligations to indigenous contractors totaling 4 trillion. They coordinated with civil society groups. They accused the Ministry of Favoritism and demanded the resignation of the Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Doris Ozuka Anite. Instead, payments have accused loans defaults, asset seizures, and job losses, prompting calls for presidential intervention and ensure prompt disbursement as well accountability. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission announced that applicants with strong technical and financial credentials will advance in 2025 licensing round for 50 oil and gas blocks. The CEO, Mrs. Odisemiyewa Ayesan, emphasized a transparent, merit-based process and reduce entry barriers. The compliances with the Petroleum Industry Act and digital tools aims to attract investors, improve sufficiency, and strengthens confidence in Nigeria's petroleum sector. That's where we draw curtain for News at 10. I am Herbert Naftali Bandawa. Until then, I wish you a good morning.
day begins with a need to move with purpose, to shop without stress, to send without fear, to pay without delay. For every rider chasing time, for every home that needs restocking, for every voice that needs connection, for every dream that needs delivery. Now, one app brings it all together.
Supercab, move smart, ride safe, supermarket, groceries, gadgets, everything. Supercash, airtime, bills, transfers, done. Super logistics, fast, secure, right to your door.
It's more than an app. It's your movement, your market, your money, your connection, all in one place. Supergo, one app for services endless. Download Supergo today. Live free, live fast, live smart.
No time to shop, no stress. With Supergo, your groceries comes to you. We partner with trusted vendors, verified stores, no delay, no excuses, just values. Supergo Supermarket, your market now in your hands. With Supergo, your ride is comfortable, easy, and convenient. Supergo is more than an app. It's a movement. Moving people, powering threats, delivering value.
Every day begins with a need to move with purpose, to shop without stress, to send without fear, to pay without delay. For every rider chasing time, for every home that needs restocking, for every voice that needs connection, for every dream that needs delivery. Now,